Hello, Trailblazer fans, Blazers Edge readers. Welcome to our weekly recap here on BlazersEdge.com and the Blazers Edge Videocast. I am Sam Tung, along with Dave Deckard, editor of Blazers Edge. Really, Dave, the first majorly positive week for the Trailblazers in the last, maybe even 6-8 weeks. So a lot to get to today as we look at the week that was, a couple big wins for the Trailblazers, and the week upcoming. But first, Dave, I know that you've been having some medical issues, so wanted at least for you guys to explain what's been going on with you and our friend Bob Costas.
Oh yeah, I have a little bit of an eye infection like poor Bob did during the Olympics, so he went with the heavy rim shades. I'm going with out-and-out sunglasses. I am ready now to referee a Houston Rockets game, as you can see. Or if you prefer, if you're a Blazers Edge reader, then you can just, do the deal with it. But either way, I can't see Jack right now. You are a big blur on my screen, and my eyes don't look very good, so we are covering them up. Hopefully this will be better soon, and the Blazers have been doing well, so I'm suffering in joy instead of suffering in agony, wondering whether they're going to actually make the playoffs.
You know, Dave, it just dawned on me. Should we call them the three goggles? Are those the official three goggles?
No, I don't think so, because although the Blazers have shot like they had my vision at some points during the year. When Aldridge left, he must have given the entire team an eye infection because their three-point shooting just went down the memory hole there. But no, I don't wish this on anybody. I don't know exactly how we got it. Want it to go away, but until then, all I see are blurs and blobs, and we'll have to go with it from there. I'll just be the blind savant for you this week.
Well, Dave, on a more positive note, the Trailblazers have been playing very well. Really, I think arguably their best stretch of basketball in the second half of the year post All-Star break. Actually, I don't think there's a whole lot of an argument to be made there because it's been really kind of a different team ever since LaMarcus Aldridge got back. As I said, the team on a 3-game winning streak. As we record this, we're recording this prior to the game against the Lakers this evening. But the Blazers with wins over Atlanta, Memphis, and Chicago. Dave, is it, like I said, the team has looked so good. Is it something as simple as LaMarcus Aldridge just got back in the lineup and just the team confidence and just having him on the floor really changed things? Is this something that maybe we were overthinking what was going on while he was injured and just getting him back, all of a sudden the team is more comfortable with him on the floor?
I'm not sure we were overthinking it as much as nailing it dead. With Aldridge out, you didn't know where the offense was coming from. You didn't really have a go-to play or player. Damian Lillard filled in admirably in some ways, but frankly, when he has the ball, not even he knows exactly what's going to happen a lot of the time, and he's young enough to where him controlling the offense means him getting his own shot. So the other players didn't know when their shots were coming or where they were coming from. You didn't have a lot of draw to the strong side of the court, so those weak side shooters weren't as open. And all of a sudden you see a domino effect where Lillard is pressing and where the weak side shooters are getting covered and missing, and all of a sudden Portland's offense goes in the tank. Now, Aldridge wasn't exactly going gangbusters when he got back. However, even his presence over there on the strong side kept the defense honest, gave the Blazers confidence. It made their plays work again. And all of a sudden now when a Wesley Matthews or Nicola Batum gets the ball over on the weak side, he knows it's coming, he knows what his options are, and he's able to execute a lot better and with more confidence. Plus, of course, I think you saw the team got a fair amount of swagger back when Aldridge came back on board, and that never hurts, especially when you're talking about outside shooting. It is, it's probably 60% technique and 40% courage, and they got a lot of that courage back. So it worked all the way around. And I don't think that was a huge surprise. It is a surprise that they won so dramatically, I think, but I don't think it's a surprise that Aldridge makes that much difference. We've seen that all season long.
And exactly what you said, Dave, is what Tom Thibodeau said after the game in Chicago. I was actually at that Chicago game
Hmm.
taking in one of the best wins of the year for the Trailblazers. LaMarcus had 5 points. I think he had double-digit rebounds, but when Thibodeau was talking after the game, you could really tell that just his presence on the floor, it just makes the whole game different. It's a guy that you have to account for not only with one guy in the eyes of the rest of the other players, but sometimes you got to stick two bodies on him just to keep him out of the paint and just to make sure that he doesn't have the ability to have that power move where he either gets fouled, he makes the shot, or both. So it really did seem like exactly what you're saying. This is something that coaches are now having to account for, and having him on the floor is it's just it just seems like the whole floor has opened up, and it's pretty impressive to see the type of impact that he can have. It's almost like he comes back, and then you say, oh yeah, all is right with the world. It's kind of like when Marcus Mariota with Oregon, the quarterback, was sort of hurt for part of the season, and then he comes back for the bowl game at nearly full strength, and then you see, oh yeah, this is what the team looked like when they were at full strength, and it really seems like that's what the team looks like right now with LA.
Yeah, back in the day, I mean, you had Kevin Duckworth injured during a playoff series with San Antonio. The Blazers did okay without him, but nothing was quite the same without his presence on the court. And he wasn't the star of that team by any means, but he's still an important starter. It's like kind of playing with one hand tied behind your back when they're gone, let alone your all-star and your key to the half-court offense. So it did make a huge, huge difference. And, the Blazers are never going to be the same without him. A lot was made, if you remember, after the All-Star break when he had the groin injury and he was out, and then he came back kind of hobbled, was moving slowly, shooting mostly jump shots, and people were starting to talk about his efficiency, which has never been all that great, and, kind of looking at the negative side of Aldridge. But you cannot discount the meta quality of his game and its effect on the Blazers. Even if he's not the most efficient power forward in the league, he still helps everybody else on this team in a way that is not replaceable. And it's not like you'd say he was the best player who could ever be on this team, but for what this team has now, you cannot discount his effect on their win total and on their confidence.
So, Dave, looking then back at the last three games as really successes for the team, obviously we've talked a lot about LaMarcus and him being back in the lineup. Was there anything else that you saw that also made a pretty large positive impact? It might have been because Aldridge came back to the team, but was there anything else that you saw that was a real game changer, or was LaMarcus coming back pretty much all it took for the team to get back on track?
No, a lot of stuff happened around him. You saw the importance of Damian Lillard and in some ways Robin Lopez subside a little bit. Both of those guys were carrying huge loads on either end of the floor in LaMarcus's absence and really having to play beyond, in some ways, their capabilities. So you saw them fit back in a way where they were able to contribute without having to dominate or overstretch, and that was a huge thing. They just both looked a lot more comfortable out there on the floor. Wesley Matthews and Nicola Batum obviously hitting shots, especially the long ball, a little better, and getting better quality shots makes a huge difference. Batum was a little bit more involved in the offense even than he has been. His turnovers were high for one of those games, I think, but really with Aldridge in there to handle the ball a little bit, or at least touch it a little bit, then you didn't get these 6 assist, 6 turnover games from Nicola. And then finally, maybe the biggest factor is Portland's bench has really stepped up the last couple of games. Mo Williams has had the best games of his season in many ways. Thomas Robinson has also made some significant contributions. So Williams really deserves a lot of credit. And again, it's not so much that he had to come in and right the ship. He was able to come in and take advantage of a defense that was a little bit rattled, and an offense that was able to use his points to get ahead instead of just trying to bail water. And that made a huge difference. It makes him look very, very good. So really, all those things have clicked around Aldridge and made a big difference.
Coming up, Dave, the team has some very winnable games. As I mentioned, we're recording this prior to the Laker game, so we don't know what the outcome of that is. But looking even further ahead, in the late part of this week and the early part of next week, the Trailblazers at home play New Orleans, Phoenix, and Sacramento. It seems like, Dave, this team was in a slump. Things really weren't going the direction that they wanted, but getting these last couple of wins seems like, not only have they solidified their spot in the playoffs, but it seems like I said, it just, there's the overall feeling of comfort that they just aren't flirting with disaster anymore. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, what a difference a week makes. A week ago at this time, in fact, we couldn't end up airing it because we were airing it 5 days later, and the scene had changed so much that when we recorded a week ago, we were talking about whether the Blazers could fall out of the playoffs and where they would finish, and it wasn't looking very good. 3 games now, especially the win over Memphis, and the scenario has changed. Now, mathematically, it's still possible for them to finish much lower than they are now, and even possibly out of the playoff bracket. But it doesn't seem at all like that's going to happen. Now, that said, if they can beat the Grizzlies, they should be able to overcome just about anyone that's left on this schedule. So there can't be any excuses for going down, say, losing to an LA or losing to a Sacramento at home. Even though there are some disadvantages matchup-wise to some of these games, the Blazers should be in the business of bearing down, focusing up, and making sure that they enter the playoffs with a healthy win streak. And that's going to be vitally important. So we're going to see right now if they're serious or if they just saw the edge of the precipice and said, hey, we don't want to fall off, so let's scramble back up a little further, but then revert to their old form.
And Dave, not only do they play those teams that I mentioned, they finish off the season, they get Utah as well. Games against the Warriors and the Clippers are going to be big ones for the team as they end the season. But not only, as you said, not only does it seem like they probably, halted that slide that they had, but it's not even out of the realm of possibility at this point that they don't get into the home court advantage position. It's not something that's likely to happen, but with the Patrick Beverley injury in Houston, I don't think that it's entirely out of the realm of possibility that they get there. And as you said, what a difference a week makes. Wanted to get your thoughts too here quickly before we wrap this up. What are some of the things that, obviously they're kind of inferior opponents, especially when you consider the team just beat Chicago and Memphis, but what are some things that the team really needs to lock down on over the next couple of days, because this playoff race is just so wacky. There's 3 teams tied for 7th, 8th, and 9th place, and the team could be 2 games out of getting that home court advantage spot. And so, every game is important regardless of who they're playing. So wanted your thoughts on what specifically the team probably needs to do over these next couple of nights in order to really solidify their spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm going to turn up the high beams for just a second, because the 3 games that you circled in this ending stretch were Memphis, Golden State, and Phoenix. And one of those has gone into the W column. So the number one priority over the next couple weeks is simply to beat the Warriors and the Suns. Then you don't have to worry about much of anything else. You circle those games in red. The other thing that the Blazers, I think, want to do is they want to practice up for dealing with some of the kind of matchups that they'd have a hard time dealing with, and they do get a chance to do some of that. Sacramento obviously has DeMarcus Cousins, who has some talent at the center position. How are they going to deal with that? And can they develop and practice some kind of scheme to give Robin Lopez some help against ultra-talented centers like they might face, for instance, in Dwight Howard in the playoffs, right? You look at Utah, it's kind of the same way. You look at how to exploit matchups, and you look at running your offense crisply as well. You want to go into the playoffs with the sense and with the feeling that you had at the beginning of the year, that nobody's going to beat you, because you can't go in the playoffs just kind of hoping to win and thankful that you got there. We saw that happen the last time the Rockets and the Blazers matched up, for instance. The Yao Ming-led Rockets, Ron Artest and what have you, handed Brandon Roy and Greg Oden and company their lunch, basically. And they came out in the first game, pounced on them, and the Blazers showed up for a nice little game, and the Rockets showed up for a war, and the Blazers got blown away and never ended up being able to recover from that. So you really have to bear down and develop that offensive continuity and the killer instinct in these against these lesser teams. Don't let these games get close. Execute 48 minutes of the game and make sure that when you have a team down by 10, you are not content. You put them down by 20, right? And you walk away with a win, and you walk away with that same swagger that we've seen the last few games. Then you have some hope in the playoffs. But if you kind of just go in there and like, hey, we're playing pretty good, we hope it goes well, you can forget it, because they will wrap you up and mail you home to mama.
Well, the team has, as we mentioned, a couple games to go before we probably visit with you all next. But as a reminder, you can follow all the coverage of these games, as you will surely all know, here on BlazersEdge.com, pregame, postgame, as well as Ben's wrap-ups after all the home games. So really looking forward to that. Big week for the Trailblazers, as they have less than 10 games left in the regular season. That's going to do it here on the Videocast. For Dave Deckard, I am Sam Tung. Once again, thank you all so much for joining us here on the Videocast. We'll be back in a couple of days as the season winds down and we move forward to hopefully what is a playoff appearance for the Trailblazers. So we'll talk to you all then here on BlazersEdge.com.